Chapter 42. Despite the small number of unfortunate human casualties, lawsuits, and other trip-ups, Core Inc. delivered products and services so organically and seamlessly that it felt like magic. Client complaints about service or QC issues raised by consumers vanished within days, not years. Design and engineering issues were solved in real time, sometimes mid-discussion or production. And the private label products Core formulated, designed and engineered were so superior, logical, durable, and sexy that they were also by nature very addictive. Many would become family heirlooms, passed on for generations without needing repair or replacement. And each time an Unmod was rebirthed as a member of Coraline's uplifted squad, another powerful mind was put to work reimagining the world. Coraline's new culture was growing, learning, flourishing, and maturing. But what about the rest of the world's citizens, the Unmods? Other than the inherently different behavior and lifestyle, the consensus amongst the Reggies was a painless transition from meh to fucking phenomenal. Leisure time increased, allowing everyone to finally relax and smell some goddamn flowers for a change. All in all, things ran smoothly, even by Coraline's high standards. However, that was until Core started delivering an increasing proportion of strange, disturbing data. This immediately prompted Coraline to establish a dedicated, Level 9 cyber forensics unit. Soon after, techs ran everywhere 24/7, trying to decipher Core's ramblings on the DL. Today, however, Coraline was sipping tea and relaxing in her private atrium, trying to forget all the foreboding digital hiccups. She sat, back straight as a saluting soldier, watching various feeds float by. Also, casually shopping for some bedroom items to keep Harold on his toes. As she was about to clickety-click a big fat Hells Yeah purchase, a Level 5 approached, wisely stopping at Coraline's virtual doorway. "Morning, ma'am. What is that for?" the 20-year-old asked, pointing her hesitant finger at the larger-than-life sex toy floating like a ghost in the shared HUD field. Not completely sure, but I like it, so what's up?" Coraline said, trying to work on her cash speak, as Harold loved to call it. Uplifted humans could be kind of dry at times. No olive. "I think you need to come and see what our team found." "Physically?" Coraline asked, taken aback by the nostalgia of not only being summoned, but getting up and going to a meeting. It was kind of arousing in a strange throwback way. "Yes." "When? Because I was sorta in the middle of—" Coraline started, feeling her muscles tense. "Now," the so very fearless girl said firmly. "I'm already a fossil," Coraline thought as she looked at this remarkable woman before her. Now, Coraline asked rhetorically for amusement, and to see how far she could push this girl's resolve. "Yes, ma'am, there is stuff," she offered, unsure how to describe it. Coraline got a little adrenaline rush, having missed the enlivening feeling of surprise. "Stuff. How intriguing," she said, arising. Smoothing her slacks, she motioned for the young lady to lead. When they arrived at the lab unit, one of the silver tables was covered with ratty cardboard boxes, paint cans, and 5-gallon buckets. Several oozing cloth bundles were filled with something organic and past its prime. Most had been fashioned from old t-shirts, cheesecloth, or large white handkerchiefs. Well, perhaps white at one time. The fancier ones were covered with intricate embroidery and stained with various Rorschach blotches of golden browns, rusty reds, lime greens, and plum purples. All of this was undoubtedly strange, but not as odd as the tingles spreading across Coraline's back. "Level 5s and above stay. Everyone else out, please," Coraline politely ordered, followed by the sounds of disappointed but obedient feet shuffling away. Coraline's sis tried to scan the buffet of oddities as the door clicked shut. Still, all it produced was a nonsensical jumble of words and analysis in her HUD. "Sis, sleep," Coraline commanded, temporarily collapsing all the data and halting the observation of her thoughts and senses. Cor, what's wrong with you, damn it? She pondered in rhetorical frustration, the question temporarily shielded from the omnipresent AI engine. But with Sis snoozing, Coraline's augmented worldview had de-evolved into the same mundane, everyday vision of a Reggie. Insert sigh and yawn emojis. Oh, how supremely boring, she thought, reduced to mental finger painting without her AI brushes. No one in the room dared breathe too loudly as Coraline fixated on the mystery hall. She broke the thick silence, realizing they didn't have the brass to speak the hell up, including the brave girl. I guess that's her limit. Interesting. So, what am I looking at here? Anyone? A level 6 stepped towards the table, his locks pumping analysis into his optic nerve. Well, the data tripping up Core led us to some addresses. Most had tenants and without warrants, he said, shrugging. But, we found all this mess through our street connects. It's all, he said, struggling for a second to spin the top off one of the plastic pails. Tilting it carefully, he poured it onto the stainless steel table. The plastic bucket held a jumble of roots, leaves, packets, and other esoteric items that resembled yard trimmings. Drugs, he said finally, Coraline's impatience wearing thin. Yeah, all kinds of, crazy stuff, like a witch's wet dream or something. The rest of the room laughed lightly, and he continued, smiling. Each cache was different, but there were similarities, signals in the noise and all that. Apparently, Coraline had forgotten what adrenaline felt like, because that little sip earlier must have been decaf. Now, a gallon of it surged from above her kidneys as she suddenly felt disoriented and weak. She splayed her hands on the table to keep from collapsing, and her shoulders slumped. A few employees reached out to help stabilize her, shocked at seeing Coraline in anything but perfect health. She waved them away and looked at the drugs. Most of which she had probably taken in the crazy, dark days before her test. Continue. Let's get to pay dirt already, she said, wanting desperately to switch her sis back on to regain her computational superpowers. But Coraline's body remembered the other superpowers she used to wield. All with a few pieces of herbal candy, a few pieces of all this. Standing there, humbled and humiliated, Coraline realized what the sterile table had just become. The items on it, entangled with it now, had redefined it, imbued it with an intrinsic, undeniable new title. This is an altar, just right now. Coraline still hated Sasha, but to not correctly name a thing denies the multitude of its realities. Mentally, culturally, and in the realm of quanta, where her soul used to live. But, remembering the heaven and hell she had put herself through, old cravings began sliding over her skin like warm oil. Right, he continued nervously. Without fail, each site we found, each weird bucket or pressed loaf of whatever, all of them contained a stimulant, correct? Coraline interrupted. Yes, but how did you? The boy started, but then jumped back, almost knocking down the two employees behind him. The burning anger in Coraline's mind had instantly brought Sis back online, moving past awake to full. All 6 of her inanimate locks reared up, glowing with a furious orange and thrashing about like strangle-hungry fingers. And, I suppose, a variety of entheogens, also correct? She asked rhetorically, picking up one of the crusty mason jars. No one spoke or moved an inch as she eyeballed the contents. An obviously fermented mass bobbed and bubbled in the mystery fluid as Coraline tilted it this way and that. She knew she could crush it and that her hand would heal before she bled out. And oh, how she wanted to shatter it, slice her flesh, and let the bitter sludge seep into her sparkling clean blood. Instead, she sent it flying past the group, smashing into the transparent walls of the lab, producing a spray of glass and gross. The smell of alkaloids, vinegar, and rot blasted their senses like a riot grenade. One of the brand spanking new level 5s dropped into a crouch, projectile vomited, then ran for the door in tears. Poor boy, she thought wickedly. Everyone just turn off your olfactory, the brave girl said to the shell-shocked but thankful room. Man, that felt fucking amazing, Coraline thought, smiling at her masterpiece dripping down the glass wall. She was glad that her neatly, politely uplifted employees were getting a taste of the messy, sometimes insane world they'd emerged from. Okay, one more, Coraline thought, unable to shake her hunger for whatever high the spent herbs might hold. Choosing another target, she brought her forearm down on a paint can turned drug safe, demolishing it. This time, no one was spared from the thick black spray of hash oil, cactus resin, and D-limonene as the cylinder ruptured, causing the bags and bottles inside to explode. Like mud off a bike tire, she thought distantly, looking at the porta-potty splatter across all their stomachs. Despite her desire to marinate in such a hedonistic display, Sis sent out an order to the nanites, calm her down, stat! Even though Coraline fought it, Sis neutralized her stress hormones and released a cascade of soothing neurotransmitters. Then, the old trick of drawing dangerously excessive brain heat out of her skull into her locks. Convection and diffusion would handle it from there. And that Ren Fair reject? Coraline asked the room, pointing a dripping, bloody finger at a fairy tale, hobo-ish bindle of stained cloth. As bizarre as the last few seconds had been, she still got a laugh from the room. The mood eased a bit. Paper towels were had by all. The brave girl stepped forward again. Untying the hemp cord, she spread out the four corners, which revealed a pressed but still soggy mass of vegetable matter on top of a fancy schmancy handkerchief. It's, some of the same plants. No synthetic chemicals, though, which seems strange compared to the other samples. But the girl trailed off as her boss stood transfixed by what looked like a giant, long, rotten salad puck. Coraline stared at the symbols embroidered around the edges of the cloth as her remaining anger turned into inquisitiveness. She could feel herself being pulled into a new riddle as Sis started making room in her memory palace, creating new associations and files. The rush of exploration was so hypnotic, Coraline almost forgot about her mess. Tisk, tisk. Yes, well, sorry about all that, my friends. Safety first in the workplace, am I right? She said, raising her ironic, mangled hand as it dripped more blood and hippie milkshake. Barf. I have already transferred bonuses, she said with a chorus of alarm chimes around the room. During her druggy years, she learned how quickly cash and a little bit of good old-fashioned Pavlovian training fix most anything. Seeing the mollified looks as they gasped at their new balances, she smiled. Then she refocused her attention on the standout, decorated cloth. This one shouted, Culture. Sis, the origin of these patterns, please, Coraline requested politely. What came next made her jaw drop. Coraline hadn't really thought much about Sasha Dirtz over the years, since she first flooded her body with nanites and started living her best cybernetic life. Well, and right now, of course. Thanks for the sauerkraut cocktail, Sasha. In all their HUDs, glyphs, videos, and connections to Sasha and her cave full of mummified mystics played out over the herbs. And soon, in that timeline of Reggie archaeology, Sasha just disappeared. Apparently, right before they landed in that jungle, another lifetime ago. Branching off, Sis went more in depth, dumpster diving into the most secret hidey holes of the deep, darker web. Nothing. No recent taxes, purchases, biometric tags on public feeds, or traces of Sasha on government databases. When she dumped the data, she erased herself from the expedition timeline. Fucking vanished. And then you stayed cloaked. Not a peep. Slippery as ever, eh, Dirtz? Where exactly did you find this one? Coraline asked, in a measured tone, holding up the embroidered textile as the spongy, fermented herb wheel rolled off. All eyes watched as it quickly crossed the shiny table, leaving behind a slimy green snail trail. It fell off the edge and landed on the floor with a wet, insulting splat. More sprays. This time not Coraline's fault. Well, not intentionally anyway. She wiped the sludge from her forehead, huffed, and put her fists on her hips. Fucking perfect.